Hello, everyone. I am Dee. Welcome back to another episode of Spiritually Speaking. I have another beautiful guest with me today. This is Aga. Thank you so much for being with me today, Aga. I'm so happy to have you.
Hello. Hello. Thank you so much for inviting me.
You're very welcome. So tell us about yourself and what you do, what your spiritual journey has been like, and where that has brought you today.
Okay, so maybe a little bit about me personally at the beginning. My name is Aga, and I am originally from Poland, and I currently live in the United Kingdom. And my spiritual journey was, I feel like well, of course, it still is continuing, but I feel like it has been such a whirlwind of so many things, and it happened literally like a tornado. It started, hmm, I would love to say it started in my childhood because I have discovered then that I could see things that were actually not visible to like physically visible. And the more I started talking about it to the grown-ups in my life at the time, nobody believed me. So I feel like this has pushed all of my spiritual gifts very deep under the surface, and it also made me feel like I feel like, this is another programming that I have been dealing with. It programmed me to believe that it was something actually very bad, and that, because it was out of norm,
Right.
um I just really pushed it deep inside, and I was always scared of it. So what triggered my awakening, if you will, was it was 5 years ago after I fled domestic violence with my 3-year-old daughter at the time. And since then, I feel like I have been put on a very fast track healing journey, and I got to rediscover very deeply buried down parts of my spiritual gifts that now I am, extremely grateful to share with the world.
Yeah, it's amazing how domestic violence can be a catalyst for that because I went through that myself. I was in a situation with domestic violence, and that's when I really started a deep dive into myself to find out all of the things that I needed to do so that I could make myself stronger, strong enough so that I could leave the situation. And that became the catalyst that drove my deepening of my spiritual journey. And I, like you, started out when I was very young. So it's very interesting how these horrible things, like you said, can form like this tornado, this storm in our life, but it's actually what catapults us into the next stage and into our purpose.
Absolutely. And I always believe that the most excuse me, the most difficult and the most traumatic your childhood is, the more trauma you go through in your life, your transformation will be even, the more spectacular it will be. And the your journey will unfold, one step at a time. But at the same, like you said, it is the catalyst to start. It's like the big bang. It's like boom,
Yeah.
and yeah, everything is torn into pieces, and you are being put on this journey to find those missing pieces of your soul back into one, and and rebirth yourself as a whole new person who have rediscovered your truest potential, and your sparkle.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think sometimes that we wouldn't take that step forward. Like I feel like
Mm.
that's how I was. Like if this certain thing hadn't happened that I describe as my smackdown, like my spiritual smackdown, because I wasn't listening, how long would I have stayed there and tolerated being treated like less than anything, like this just I was treated like a piece of dirt, less than that even. And how long would we have stayed, right? Aga, how long would we have stayed if we hadn't reached that place where everything, like you said, got ripped apart and we finally decided, hey, I don't like this ripped apart feeling. start putting the pieces back together again.
Yes, and I also believe that, and probably you know what I mean by that because you have felt and experienced it. When you are inside the situation, you have block on your eyes,
Mhm.
and you don't even want to see all the things that
Yeah.
make you feel like there's no tomorrow, there's no hope for tomorrow. Because yes, I have experienced so many times that the feeling of I just wish I didn't exist anymore. I cannot imagine myself continuing with my life the way it is now. And I was always wondering, how far, like you said, how far it could get for me. What else does, needs to happen for me to finally open my eyes? And I feel like for me was the moment when I discovered, when I realized that my mother has been having similar, marriage and similar life. My grandmother, similar, and and so on and so on. So it actually helped me to realize that I am carrying certain programming
Yeah.
that has been, with my family generation by generation. And when I realized that, I said to myself, do I want to carry this on? Do I want to continue? Do I wish this to my daughter, to
Right.
repeat the same cycle as what I was doing? And the answer was immediately no.
Right.
I don't want to do this. So it was actually over 6 years ago when I first come to this realization. And I feel like, once I realized that, I sent this straight signal to the universe that
Yeah.
I don't want to continue the same cycle. I want to break free from that. And I was placed in that path of healing and discovery of myself. And it transpired by me having to flee the domestic violence situation. But deep in my heart, I actually was waiting for the green light from someone or somewhere so I could be able to escape and
Yeah.
I could be able to literally break free and start over, because I knew doing so would be very difficult, especially, I had 3-year-old girl with me
Right.
and no family around, because like I said, I am from Poland but I live in the UK. So, and I came here 10 years ago on my own, so there is no family around,
Yeah.
and I was fleeing to a completely different city, so not to be found that easily. And it was extremely traumatic. There was loads of situations where I felt like I started being paranoid, whether I was being tracked or traced, especially, my ex-husband, he's got a history of being able to hack my devices.
Mm.
And I developed massive OCD about feeling of safety and privacy, and, all the settings in my phone. There were almost every single day I kept checking whether there is no one else logged into my Apple account. There is, like I would be very observant about the cars. If I saw any repeating plate numbers in the same area, I would start being very anxious,
Yeah.
whether my ex knows where I am. And because for so many years in the marriage I felt so powerless, that I felt like I had no control over my life, and I had to report every single thing back to him. And at the same time, I knew very little about him. So I always felt like he was too powerful for me to just be able to run away with our daughter and, continue living my life without him hanging, around my shoulder. So it was really difficult, but at the same time, I know that I needed to go through this and I needed to have so many steps along the way that were proving to me it actually I have more power than he does because I can take my life back and I can start speaking my truth, because for many years I was also programmed to believe that nobody is gonna believe me
Right.
because, you know, abusers, right? In my case, he was a narcissist. So
Mm.
they create this perfect public image, right? You probably know so much about that. Then it's so hard for your friends or family or people in your life to believe that, oh my goodness, what happened? You looked like such a happy couple,
Right.
right? Because we were keeping up the appearances. You obviously you're not gonna post on your social media, we just had a massive argument, and
Right.
the details of your argument, you're gonna post a family, holiday photo,
Yes,
and
exactly.
everyone think, oh, such a lovely family, they are on holiday enjoying nice family time, and behind the closed doors even the holidays were horrible. So
Yeah.
it's not always like that. But yeah, I believe, my soul needed this so much. And I also firmly believe that a soul chooses all the experiences and lessons in
Yeah.
the life before we come down to this lifetime. And I believe I chose this for myself, because if I haven't experienced this, I would never have any boundaries. I would never know my worth, and I would never know the power of speaking my truth. And I feel like I would never rediscover my spiritual gifts, and I would never be able to help many women from all around the world the way I do right now if I haven't lived through the traumatic situations.
Yeah. That's very true. I was actually told that during my first ever intuitive reading about 14 years ago. I think it's been now since I had my first intuitive reading. And that's one of the things he told me was you're going through the things you're going through so that you will be able to help people from a place of experience later, because it just has a different flavor to it when we've been through it, doesn't it? It's different than just telling someone else's story and using that to help someone.
Of course, because if you have walked in those shoes, then you know by experience how it can make you feel. You
Mhm.
know exactly that there will be days where you are so uplifted, so happy that you are finally free. And after a couple of days, you can have this period of like, boom, crying and even missing the person that you escaped from. Um, Going through grief of your vision for your life together, what could have been if he didn't do this to me, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's the grief of, I had such a beautiful vision of our life together, family life, something that I always longed for, something that I've never experienced as a little girl. And that vision of having happy family life, of having family at all, people to meet regularly with on special occasions, and I took just a tiny, tiny pieces of love
Mhm.
that were not something I deserve. I deserve much more. I still do, but I didn't know it at the time. I went for someone who has promised me to make my vision come true with no intention of actually making it true. And the intention was something completely different to how it was portrayed. So
Yeah.
because I have autism, I am on the spectrum. I am a vulnerable person, and sometimes I trust people too easily. And so 10 years later, now I can recognize when, someone's intentions are not honest towards me. But then, coming from the very, broken family with no father figure, with no parental figure, actually, I was made to be the grown up of the family.
Mm.
So having not had any emotional support during my childhood and early adulthood, I just went for a first person who said to me, who promised me that, my vision for a
Right.
family can become reality. And
Yeah.
I just went. I was caught into the cage, and for a couple of years, I didn't even realize I was in one.
Yeah, it's so incredible, isn't it? How we look to the outside. And that's the beautiful thing about discovering ourselves is that we realize we don't have to look to the outside for anyone to make anything happen for us. We're fully capable and whole enough to do that ourselves. And I feel like that's a really beautiful thing. But I want to ask you, because listening to your journey, have you done any inner child work? And if you have, how has that affected you?
I continue to do it as much as my inner child needs to. Once in a while, she pops out and she says, there are a few things, we need to discuss and work on. And, I honor her, and she's always part of me. And um, I was actually talking on my stories today about how how your inner child never grows up.
Hmm.
So even though you might be of certain age, you might be a grown up, a senior even, and the inner child will never die in you, and they will always be the same age, and they will always need you to pour that unconditional love and make them safe, regardless of your age. And yes, I have done the big. Maybe I think it's interesting to talk about the beginnings of my inner child work, because when I first heard about it, I was I was shocked, and I was even absolutely annoyed. The thought of working with an inner child, of having an inner child within me,
Hmm.
it made me really annoyed. Like, who made this up? Who dares
Yeah, it's
saying
so
that there
funny.
is an inner child within you? It is absolutely funny to me today. But then, yeah, I was shocked and I was annoyed, and I didn't want to hear anything about that, even um, because there was one person who told me about this. They were actually doing that inner child work, and I thought it was such a nonsense, and that it was an excuse for like meltdowns and
Mhm.
all sorts
Yeah,
of, like, lots of the negative emotions.
right.
And yeah, so I was extremely against that at the beginning, until one day when I discovered that I started getting flashbacks of many situations from my childhood. And having been in therapy for many years as well, I knew that having flashbacks is an invitation to sit with what I'm being shown in
Right.
front of my eyes, what the images that come to my head. So I sat with it, and I don't think I have ever cried so much in my life before, the way I've cried during that moment of sitting still with my feelings. I have seen myself, because maybe a bit of a background. I do come from a broken family. My father has left us when I was 6 years old, and I do have a younger brother. He's 2 years younger than me. So when my mom was about to give birth to my brother, she was in a hospital for several weeks, and I was left with my narcissistic alcoholic father
Mhm.
alone in the house. And my mom's mother came to help him with me, looking after me. And that's all I know from all the stories, that when I started crying, when I needed something, he never let her pick me up. He never let her tend to me. He always wanted me to finish crying on my own, which for over 1 year old was absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
And during that session, I went back into that body of 1.5 year old, And I was crying this horrible cry because I knew no one is gonna pick me up. And what I did during this, because I feel like it was an astral travel, I feel like I was literally out of my body. I felt so tiny, like I was this little girl in there. And then I saw myself the from the
There.
future,
Yeah.
carrying myself, picking myself up, carrying myself, hugging me so tightly, kissing my forehead, and like whispering so many beautiful things that I will always be safe, I will always be protected. I just have to be always connected with my heart and with myself. And it was such a beautiful experience. And ever since that day, I always honor the inner child in me, and I always try to find all the things that she needed to have when she was a little girl, and no one around her would give it to her. So I am my own safer, and I am the person who can shower myself with unconditional love, and especially that little child inside me. And I can help her because now I am the grown up,
Yes.
and I can help her getting all the things that she needed and making her feel safe and loved every single day of my life. And I feel like it does sound ridiculous to some, because how on earth are you carrying an inner child inside you if you are already a grown up? But it's just a part of your soul that always lives within you, and that always wants to be noticed and to be honored.
Mhm.
And as long as you can give it to yourself, then I feel like you can be unstoppable, because
Yeah.
it's such a simple thing to do, but it's so rewarding at the same time. And as ridiculous as it sounds, it works wonders.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. And I love that you were so vulnerable, and I want to honor you and thank you for the vulnerability that you just showed and shared with us all, because it's amazing to hear how you resisted it at first, how you thought it was ridiculous and stupid even. You didn't use that word, but I could feel it kind of tumbling around in there. And that you just one day realized that, let me just see. And you just paid attention to her then and gave her what she needed, and how that's transformed your life. And you're still paying attention to it. And I do believe that it's something that will never go away with us all. It's living in there. And I feel like that's the parts of us that have the fear a lot of times around things, because how will we be received by other people? Will we get that attention that we need? And realizing that we can give it to ourselves. And that's really the most important thing. We don't have to look on the outside for that validation. We need to look inside for that. So that's a beautiful thing. So thank you so much for that.
It's a pleasure. And I am actually surprised how easily I can talk to those things about those things right now, comparing to a couple of years ago, and all when I was experiencing it. And you've said something right now I would really like to speak about. When you said the validation, the
Mhm.
one that we need is the internal one. And I feel like we constantly, as humans, as all the human beings, we are conditioned again and programmed from birth to seek the validation outside. If
Mhm.
you are not being validated in the world, if you don't feel like you are approved, then you have a really hard time being your authentic true self
Mhm.
and showing to the world how, you know, your own light, right? Shining your own light to the world. Because, and I've been like this for many years as well. If, especially, the approval of my mother,
Mhm.
which I will never get, because we were not meant to be on the same wavelength in this lifetime.
Yeah.
But it was always something that I just couldn't cope with. And I'm actually also really pleased with myself because today I rang her and I was extremely excited to tell her that I'm gonna be a guest in a podcast. I'm gonna have a call, and that I will be able to talk about my story, about what I do. And I was so excited, and she didn't share my excitement. She very quickly dimmed that light, tried to
Right.
dim that light that was shining through me. And I didn't let her. I ended the phone call, and I explained to myself that I should share those things with the people who understand me, who will appreciate it, and who will celebrate with me together.
Mm.
And I didn't get upset because I feel like, thanks to that, inner work, I am able to now have the tools ready within me to not to be bothered by the external factors, because there will always be someone or something out there that will try to dim your light.
Yes.
And it's up to you how you react to this and how you navigate your energy towards that
Mhm.
obstacle.
Yes. Yes, it's very true. And I had the same as you. I didn't, my parents actually went to their graves without me ever having their approval. The cool thing about it is that I'm able to connect with them now, and we have a great relationship now that they're
Yes.
on the other side, because there's none of that judgment that there is here on this earth plane. But I love that you speak to this, because I feel like it's so important for people to understand that even with these key people in our lives, I call them power players, like mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, best friends, lovers, whatever they are, these people that are the closest to us and should have our backs and be in our corner no matter what, they aren't always. And that we still are valid in our truth anyway. I still remember the day when I decided for my own self, I get to be happy anyway. I get to be happy anyway, even if they don't approve of me. This is when they were still earthbound. Even if they don't approve of me, I can have that facet of my life not be exactly how I would love for it to look, and I can still be happy. It hurts, it makes you sad and all of those things, but
Yeah.
that's not your life. That's a part of your life. It's not your entire life. And you still get to choose your own path and be happy in your own self anyway. And I think that's a really huge message. So I love that you just shared that. And thank you again. Your vulnerability is just incredible. I mean, I love it that you're just, you just crack yourself open and share it with the world. And that is, it's going to touch someone. Someone's going to listen to this and they're going to see themselves in you and realize that, hey, if she can do it, I can do it too. So you
So
create
can I.
safe space. I love that so much.
Thank you. I appreciate that you noticed this because for many years, again, I felt like I was in my shell, and it was almost impossible to crack that shell open.
Mhm.
And now I'm out. It
Yes.
is so easy to be out, and it is so easy to be vulnerable because this is the message that I'm bringing to the world. And if I am not vulnerable around others, and if I don't show them that it's okay and it's safe to be vulnerable, then there's no point in my work. And like you said, with your parents, now you have a great relationship with them once they cross, because there is no judgment, there is no human feelings or emotions around them. And this is exactly what I tell everyone who works with me, that it could feel very lonely because doing the work around ancestral healing,
Mhm.
um, it's a lonely work. It's a work of a cycle breaker. Cycle breaker is a black sheep in the family, and I don't like to call. I don't like this term. I prefer to say the black sheep of the family is actually the unicorn in a field full of horses,
Oh, I love that.
because that's an
Yeah.
extraordinary role that you choose for yourself, to be born within your family. for this purpose to be that cycle breaker, this unicorn in a field full of horses, someone who's going to end the karmic cycles that are no longer needed for the whole family, for the whole energetical lineage to benefit from. And it is so lonely, because once you realize that, once you start doing this work, I was depressed for so long because I felt lonely. I felt like the only person in this family who actually cares, who actually does any sort of work, who is able to identify and work through those karmic cycles. And I felt like today there is only one person in my family I am in touch with, and that's my mom. The rest of my family are, I have no idea what happens with them, because once you start the work, once you start setting the boundaries, once you start identifying, and excuse my language, the bullshit that is happening in the family, and you start speaking your truth, naming all the things that are going on. That's why cycle breakers, the unicorns, are extremely good at detecting all the lies, all the abuse, because once you realize, you have no toleration towards it, and very easily you can be left all on your own, because
Yeah.
nobody wants to take that responsibility of actually putting any work and effort into this, or even understanding what is happening and
Right.
why it's happening. So the work of a unicorn in a field full of horses is very lonely, and it's very frustrating. But at the same time, like you said, with your ancestors who have already crossed over, you can have an amazing relationship,
Yeah.
because once they are in the ancestor land, they don't have all those feelings and limitations and judgment. They are there purpose solely, the sole purpose is to help you do the work to
Yeah.
break all these cycles, and they are ready to help you, they are ready to assist you. You might be lonely in this physical world, but you are never lonely with your ancestors who are already in spirit,
Right.
as long as you open yourself up for this support.
Yeah. And it is incredible how available it is. And it's, and I'm sure there are people thinking, but my parents are really religious. Guess what? Mine too. My parents were really religious. There is no way in this earthbound life that they would have come and pat me on the back for what I'm doing now. Reading tarot cards, for God's sake, that was going to send me straight to hell. I mean, they just were not into that at all. But now, and I think that's such an important message for people to realize is once someone crosses over, that judgment is gone. It's gone. It doesn't exist anymore. And as far as feeling lonely, um, if we allow it, we can feel lonely. But I think making friends with ourselves and getting comfortable in being alone, because there's a difference in being alone and being lonely, and
Yes,
allowing ourselves to receive the support, the energetic support, the galactic support, the spiritual support, the angelic support, all of those things, and asking for that support is hugely important. We ask for it, it is right there. I mean, it is just right there. So, and it's such a beautiful thing. So, even though we're alone in this journey in many, many ways, we don't have to feel alone. We don't have to feel lonely, I guess is the better term. So I think that's a really important thing but we do have days though. I mean, we do. We're human, right? So we do have those days when we're like, why can't it be different than it is right now? I would love to talk to my mom and have this, sit down conversation, or my brother or whatever, and have that physical support. But realizing that we have all of this divine support is so amazing.
absolutely. And I actually have my grandma here with me, my mother's mom, and she crossed over 3 years ago, and she actually crossed over one day before my 30th birthday.
Wow.
Yes, it was like the cycle has completed, and it was very powerful. But she is now telling me that I have to share this story because when you said about, religiousness,
Yes.
she was very religious. She she was in church almost every day when she still could.
Yeah.
And she's just telling me that religiousness have nothing to do with the work that you do for yourself and for your family. And it does not give you any, it's not an excuse for anything, because she's just telling me like she was such a religious person, such a God-fearing lady.
Yeah.
And she died all alone. She died without a chance to say goodbye to anybody. She didn't die surrounded by her family. She died all alone, in such a, horrible condition.
Mm.
And it's just absolutely nothing. And because she was so tied up into just this one way of living, she couldn't allow herself to open her eyes for more
Yeah.
possibilities. And that's what she's just telling me now, that it's just not a reason for anyone to feel like they've got their life sorted out just because they are religious and they believe in certain deities. um it has nothing to do with how you're gonna present yourself into this world and your life, how you're gonna live it, knowing that you actually did everything that you could, and you actually fulfilled your soul purpose.
Yeah. That's so cool. Hi, Grandma. Like, that's so cool that you just popped in to say that. Oh, I love it. I love it so much. So she's one of your main guides through this journey that you're on.
Yes,
Yeah, that's amazing.
yes,
And
yes,
to me, it's so beautiful. I mean, it's beautiful anyway, but it's to me, there's an extra little bit of spice to it when they were really religious in this earthbound life because it just I mean, it unlocks something to me. You know what I mean? It unlocks this different reality that we can embrace and be a part of, and allow it to be a part of our lives.
yes, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's
I
cool.
mean, I have I remember, I was always made to believe that if I feared God, and emphasis on that word fear,
Yeah,
then if I fear God, if I go through my life according to all the rules that the church has given to obey, then I will be happy, and then I will go to heaven.
yeah,
um, I realized that I didn't resonate with this vision, with this message when I was a teenager, and I stopped going to church. And I really stood my ground with this because, coming from a religious family, I was always conditioned to, you have to be in church every Sunday, you have to go to church every Christmas, every special occasion. Church is a must. And I just I started hating it. I started realizing, listening more deeply into all the messages, into all the rules, into everything. And I realized like this is not for me. And I respect every single person who chooses to follow certain religions,
yeah,
because we all have a free will, and I
yes,
absolutely respect it. And I will never try to convince someone to stop believing in what they believe.
right.
But at the same time, I would also like to be respected for what I believe. And coming from this family, it was not always the case. So I believe standing your ground and protecting your boundaries, especially with things that are important to you, it's essential in order for you to heal
Yeah.
from those patterns and those generations of conditioning.
Yes, I agree with you 100%. I truly do. And I have the utmost respect for everyone's right to believe and look at things however they do. But I'm like you, I shouldn't say but, and I'm also like you in that it didn't, some of the things didn't resonate with me inside of the religious aspect of things because I was Pentecostal. I was raised Pentecostal. So that's a very, very super strict religion. And one of the things that I remember being puzzled about is, if you're not in the church and you're not following all these rules, then you're going to go to hell no matter what. And I'm thinking,
Yeah.
but there's some really good people outside of the church. You know what I mean? Like they live good, clean lives and they're giving and caring and generous and beautiful, and they're not angry all the time. They're really happy, like beautiful people. And they're going to go to hell just because they're not this religion. I remember being very puzzled about that. Like it didn't make sense to me, so but having said that, I don't know, how was it difficult for you? Were you afraid to start exploring your spirituality because of the religious aspect of your family?
Yes, I was. And like I said at the beginning, when I was a little girl, I could see things that were not visible to others. So whenever I would point them out and I would speak to them, you can imagine my religious grandmother would be absolutely horrified that I'm telling her things like this, and she would make me believe that it is wrong. It's
Yeah.
devil, and it's all of those horrible things. I also remember her always saying to me, whenever I would look in the mirror to just check how I look, or I just liked exploring myself. I have autism. I am very curious to about many things. So I would spend very long time in front of a mirror, like looking at myself, looking close up,
Yeah.
back, and and she would always, or before I left the house, I would check, how I look, and she would always tell me, if you look in the mirror for too long, you're gonna see the devil's reflection in there.
Wow.
So she would always, yes, yes, she she left me with impression that if I spend too much time, working on my how I look, on my image, on my looks, looking after myself, basically, I would see a devil in the reflection.
That's
That means
unbelievable.
it's something, yeah,
Something wrong in
that means it's
there.
something wrong.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. So is that how,
And now,
I feel like you're good with that now, but how long did it take you to come to terms with that and rearrange that thought around that?
it took me 2 to 3 years minimum. And like right now, I understand that hidden message in this saying, in this programming, was you cannot, don't take responsibility for your life, don't take responsibility for your action, don't look at yourself in the mirror for too much, because you're gonna start seeing all the flaws and all the uncomfortable truths that are within you, all the uncomfortable memories that you've got, all the things that you have done that you probably might be, punishing yourself for it now, that you feel guilty about them or upset. Just don't look too much into your soul. Don't stare into yourself too much, because you're gonna see the devil. And it's actually not the devil. I feel like being able to look into yourself, being able to take responsibility for your life, for all the things that you've gone through, and being able to learn from it and change something for the future, it's absolutely not a devil's work. Is the most rewarding, the most responsible work that you can do for yourself and for generations in your family. And yeah, and it's absolutely essential for you to do. It's actually encouraged. I would encourage you to do that, to look into your soul
Yeah.
and stare there and try and look for all those things that make you uncomfortable, because they are the things, once you sit with them, once you feel uncomfortable for a little bit, they will help you to move forward and
Mhm.
unblock whatever holds you down.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I actually just had this conversation with a lady the other day because she was feeling all of this stuff and I told her, basically just what you just said, sit with it. Let yourself feel it because it's the resistance, the pushing it down, the pushing it away that makes it seem so much bigger than it actually is. And if you sit with and allow those feelings to come up, I said, cry, get yourself in a place where you can be by yourself for a little while and cry if you want to cry, scream into a pillow, beat your fists on the bed, kick a tree, whatever you need to do to allow those emotions to process through you in a safe way. And then you're going to feel better, right? Because we clear all that junk out and then it makes room for the new stuff that we get to experience.
Absolutely. And I think I haven't answered the question about you asking, like, how having those religious people in my family, how it affected my spirituality. And the last thing I want to say about that is, like, having been told for since I was a little girl that seeing things, hearing things, that are not visible by physical eye was wrong and was something to be afraid of. That's why I was so scared and I was even petrified when I remember I've had my first Reiki healing session. And the person I went to, she said to me that you have healing hands and you've got that gift, and it is one of your purposes here to be able to share that gift with the world. And I was absolutely petrified of being able to see again, to rediscover the gift of being clairvoyant, of being psychic, right, of having the ability to connect with other realms and get the support from them. I was petrified, I was scared, and I remember having a friend with me every time I was about to go into the state of channeling, and because I just didn't know what I could expect, and I didn't know if I was safe to do that because I was so conditioned from early years that it was a bad thing. And now today it's so natural to me
Yeah.
that I can't believe I lived my whole life being so petrified of it if it's actually my superpower now.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Because it feels like so much wasted time. I've said that. I mean, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not. We can't, or we can look at it that way, but it's best if we choose to look at it in the way that it's just the way that our life was meant to be, that we were supposed to have those experiences exactly how they played out. But I've made the comment so many times because I've talked to moms who are more open, like you. I'm sure you're teaching your daughter that these things are
Yes.
normal and natural and she doesn't need to
Yes.
be afraid and all of it. And I just think,
No.
oh my God, that's so amazing. And maybe you think about it too. What would my life have been like if I'd have had a mom like that? Holy crap. What would I be able to do now at this age? What would I have already been doing for 30 years, Because it would be so incredible to have that support and that guidance and that just someone to share that with, so your daughter can come to you and go, hey, mom, I talked to great grandma last night and here's what she said, I just think that's so cool and so amazing. So I'm so excited for you. And I'm also excited for your daughter that you're at this place in your life so that you can teach her. And holy cow, what is she going to be like when she's your age? Because she's had that support.
Exactly. My daughter, she already, I feel like sometimes she knows more than I do,
Yeah.
because she's not been conditioned that it is wrong. Even, what's more, it was actually encouraged in her from early years to speak to the angels, to communicate with spirits, to invite them into your space, because they always bring a message that is actually needed for you to hear right now. And she does it. And I feel like thanks to her, I also started opening myself up more, because I remember I do channel light language, and I had a tough time. It was over 2 years ago. I had tough time. I felt like it just needed to come out of me, but I had a bit of a block letting it out verbally,
Hmm.
because I could always see it. I could always, I could channel it on a paper. I could hear it in my head. I could feel it everywhere. It was this block of letting it flow out of my mouth. And we were in a swimming pool, and my daughter called me to come to her. So I quickly swam to her, and she whispered into my ear something in light language.
Wow.
Yes. And that evening, I channeled like light language out of my mouth. It was out of this world experience. I felt like this whole block, it just got released. I could do it, and she helped me massively. And she was only 6 at a time, but
Wow.
she could just pick up on this because I encourage it in her to always listen to your intuition and to embrace the gifts.
Hmm.
Because to some people it might sound crazy what you do, who do you speak to, how, who do you connect with,
Right.
but to us it's something so natural, and it's something that is not wrong, it's not weird, it's something actually beautiful
Yeah.
that not everyone can embrace, and not everyone can actually face that I have this amazing gift. It's not normal, but it actually is, because if you have it in you, it's normal to you, and it should be embraced, because I believe every single soul in this planet has come with a purpose,
Hmm.
more than one purposes. And dimming your own light just to fit somewhere,
Yeah.
just to be accepted by external factors, it's actually, you are hurting yourself, and you are keeping yourself in a cage. You're not allowing yourself to fully bloom and be the unicorn in a field full of horses. It's actually a phrase I got from my daughter, because that's what she always told me to be. Because she always said that, "Mommy, I am a unicorn in a field full of horses, and I like it. I am different, but I like it.
Yeah.
I can't be boring like everyone else."
I
So,
love that.
you know,
I feel like you need to get
and
t-shirts made. I feel like you need to get
yes,
t-shirts made that say that and have that little picture. Get some, are you, I don't know if you're an artist, but if not, then hire an artist to create that scene for you because I think that would be really cool. Yeah. I bet you could sell
I
a
will think
crap ton
about
of
it.
those because that is awesome. I love that so much.
Oh, yes, that's actually a brilliant idea. I will look into that. But I just want to say, like, ancestral healing, when you heal that when you heal those karmic cycles, it brings benefits not just for you, but it's a benefit for the future generations of your family. Because my daughter, she hasn't heard all these things that I've heard when I was growing up,
Right.
and she was not made to believe that her spiritual gifts are a burden or are something to be afraid of. She is now being encouraged to work with them and to exercise them, so one day she can become someone powerful. She already is, but like
Right.
someone powerful in the world, that her spiritual gifts will be her superpower that she will share with the world. And she is an artist, and I'm sure she will be brilliant. I To be honest, since she was 3 years old, I was never worried about her future, because I knew, just one look at her, and I just knew that she's gonna be absolutely okay. So, and thanks to the work that I've done, now she's not repeating the same karmic cycles. We
Right.
have replaced them with something so beneficial that, she's already set for life, because she's, first of all, I believe in her, and I encourage her, and I show her unconditional love, which
Yeah.
was not easy, having been, brought up the way I was. But it is possible. And no matter how old you are, it is never too old to start the ancestral healing. Because yesterday I had a beautiful soul who connected with me, and the person was all in their 60s,
Hmm.
and they are starting ancestral healing
Yeah.
right now. So it is never too late,
Never.
and never. And not only it works for yourself, first of all, for future generations of your family, but it also works backwards. It
Yeah.
also works for a couple of generations backwards. So now, even though my mom cannot be as supportive as I would want her to be, or maybe, it's just my expectations that I need to let go of, but I was able to share with her some things about myself. And thanks to me sharing it and showing her that it's actually safe to talk about it, she was then able to tell me about some of her spiritual gifts and some of the things that she has seen in her life that
Wow.
she was also made to believe were not okay. So, she also knows that it's okay and it's perfectly normal that some people have that gift.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah,
It's amazing.
I firmly believe it is beneficial for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. I absolutely agree with you 100%. I think that's beautiful. Oh my gosh, you have taken us down this beautiful, beautiful road, this journey, and I love the unicorn and the field full of horses. That's so much better than the black sheep. It's just has such a magical quality to it instead of like this negative quality that we feel when we get called a black sheep. So I love that. I love that so
Yeah.
much. And I I know the listeners are going to be like, "Oh, I love that too." So yeah, I would get maybe trademark your thing there. So
I would think about it.
because I think that's so cool. So yes, and to your daughter too. I mean, just that's just so amazing. Like for her to be able to express herself that way and help you. I think that's so cool. She helps you on your journey just as much as you help her on her journey. And that's just such a beautiful symbiotic relationship there. So thank you so much for sharing so vulnerably today and so beautifully. I just think it's so amazing. And I know it's going to reach exactly the people it's meant to reach. So tell people, and you'll send me your links and everything, and I'll put those in the description box below the video, but tell everyone where they can connect with you.
So I do have an Instagram page, and my name is Mama from the Moon, and that's how you can connect with me and just make yourself feel like home in my safe space, because everyone is welcome there. And especially if you are a unicorn in a field full of horses, then you are definitely most welcome in my space. And Dee, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for the space to share my story and be vulnerable. I was a bit nervous at the beginning, but I just need to say it was extremely easy and safe to speak with you in your space. So I'm very grateful for the invitation.
Yes, you're very, very welcome. I'm very excited and happy that you came on here. So thank you for that. And thank you everyone for tuning in to another episode of Spiritually Speaking. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already to get this message out to more people who need to hear it. And thank you again. And as always, I love you all. I'll see you on the next one.